1864, St. Petersburg. Fyodor Dostoevsky publishes a short novel, a strange, bitter confession from a man living underground. Critics dismiss it. Too dark, too angry, too disturbing. But Dostoevsky wasn't writing fiction. He was writing prophecy, a warning about what humanity would become. And 160 years later, we're living exactly what he predicted. The underground man isn't a character from the past. He's you. He's me. He's everyone scrolling alone at 2 a.m., convinced they're smarter than the world that rejected them. Dostoevsky saw something about isolation, about spite, about what happens when intelligent people withdraw from life and choose consciousness over action. And what he saw terrifies me, because he was right. Fyodor Dostoevsky, 1821 to 1881, Russian novelist, philosopher, prophet of human psychology. To the world, he wrote about crime, punishment, faith, redemption. But in Notes from Underground, he wrote about something else: the modern condition, the disease of hyperconsciousness, the prison we build inside our own minds. For over a century, scholars analyzed this book as literature. They missed the point. It's not literature, it's diagnosis, a medical report on the sickness-eating civilization alive. Tonight, we examine the patient. This is the Hidden Codex. Before we descend into the underground, a word. If you've ever felt too aware, too conscious, too intelligent for your own good, if you've ever chosen thinking over living, analyzing over experiencing, if you sense that modern life is making us all sick in ways we don't want to admit, subscribe to the Hidden Codex. Turn on notifications, because what comes next cannot be unlearned. Let's go deeper. Dostoevsky introduces us to a man, 40 years old, former civil servant, living alone in a corner of St. Petersburg. And in the first line, he tells us everything. I am a sick man. I am a spiteful man. I am an unattractive man. Not a hero's introduction. Not a victim seeking sympathy. A confession. Raw, unfiltered, disturbing. This is the underground man. And he represents something Dostoevsky saw emerging in modern society. A new type of human being. Hyperconscious. Over-analytical, paralyzed by thought. Here's what most people miss. The underground man isn't mentally ill in the traditional sense. He's too conscious, too aware. He thinks so much that he can't act. He analyzes so deeply that he can't live. Dostoevsky wrote, I swear to you that to be overly conscious is a disease, a real, thorough disease, not a metaphor. A disease. And here's the disturbing part. This disease doesn't make you stupid. It makes you smart. Lethally smart. Smart enough to see through everything, including yourself. Smart enough to know that every action is questionable. Every motive is mixed. Every choice is compromised. So smart that you become paralyzed, frozen, unable to move. The underground man describes it perfectly. He says the man of action, the normal person, can act because they're stupid. They don't think, they just do. But the conscious person, the intelligent person, they see too many angles, too many possibilities, too many contradictions. Before acting, they've already dissected the action, found it wanting, exposed it as futile, and so they do nothing. They retreat. Underground, into their minds, where they're safe from the humiliation of trying. But here's what Dostoevsky understood. This isn't safety. It's prison, a prison of consciousness, and the bars are made of your own thoughts. Look at modern life. How many people do you know who are brilliant, educated, aware, and completely stuck? How many have analyzed themselves into paralysis? How many scroll through life, commenting on it, criticizing it, understanding it, but never actually participating in it. Dostoevsky predicted this. In 1864, he saw that consciousness, pushed too far, becomes a curse, that intelligence, without action, becomes poison, that awareness, without engagement, becomes hell. The underground man is the first modern anti-hero, and his descendants are everywhere. But Dostoevsky went deeper. He didn't just identify the disease, he diagnosed its cause. And the cause is isolation. The underground man lives alone, works alone, thinks alone. He has no real relationships, no genuine connections, no community. Just his room, his books, his thoughts. And in that isolation, something happens, something dark. He begins to prefer his suffering. He nurses it, cultivates it, makes it his identity. Dostoevsky wrote, "I have reached the point where I perhaps actually experience a sort of secret, abnormal, despicable pleasure in returning home to my corner on some disgusting Petersburg night, and being highly conscious that I have again done something loathsome, that what is done cannot be undone." Read that again. Pleasure in suffering, pleasure in failure, pleasure in self-destruction. Why? Because it proves he was right. Right to withdraw, right to isolate, right to give up on the world. The underground man doesn't want to succeed. Success would invalidate his worldview. He wants to fail, needs to fail, because failure confirms what he already believes, that life is futile, that people are stupid, that he's better off alone. This is the trap, the ultimate trap of consciousness. You become addicted to being right about how wrong everything is. And here's where it gets truly disturbing. The underground man isn't ignorant. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's completely aware of his own pathology. He sees through himself. But that awareness doesn't help. It makes it worse. Because now he's not just suffering. He's watching himself suffer, analyzing his own suffering, creating meta-layers of consciousness about consciousness. He writes, "Every decent man of our age is and must be a coward and a slave. That is his normal condition. Why? Because the decent man, the conscious man, sees too much, knows too much, understands too many perspectives to commit to any single action." Think about what this means today. We live in the age of information, infinite perspectives, unlimited access to every viewpoint, every criticism, every counterargument. And what's happening? We're becoming the underground man, paralyzed by possibility, frozen by awareness, unable to commit because we've seen every flaw in every option. We scroll, we analyze, we criticize, we understand. But we don't do, we don't build, we don't create, we don't risk, because risk requires ignorance, and we know too much. Dostoevsky saw this coming. He saw that modernity would create a new type of suffering, not physical, psychological, not from lack of knowledge, from too much knowledge, not from oppression, from freedom. Because when you're free to choose anything, when you're aware of everything, when no authority tells you what to think, you become responsible for creating your own meaning. And that's terrifying. The underground man can't handle it. So he retreats into spite, into resentment, into the dark comfort of his corner, where at least he's safe from the burden of possibility. But here's what Dostoevsky never says directly. Here's the part that's truly hidden. The underground man isn't just describing himself. He's describing what society creates. Dostoevsky lived through Russia's rapid modernization, traditional structures collapsing, old certainties dissolving, people flooding into cities, anonymous, disconnected, alone, and in that chaos, a new human type emerged, educated but useless, conscious but powerless, intelligent but paralyzed, the superfluous man, the underground man, the modern man, and the system that creates him doesn't want to acknowledge him, because he's proof that something is wrong, fundamentally wrong, not with individuals, with civilization itself. The underground man writes, "I tell you solemnly that I have many times tried to become an insect, but I was not equal even to that." He wants to be simple, unconscious, instinctual, like an animal, because animals don't suffer from consciousness. They just live, but he can't. Once you've awakened to awareness, you can't go back. You can only go deeper underground. 3 years before Notes from Underground, Dostoevsky visited Western Europe. He saw the Crystal Palace in London, a massive structure of glass and steel, symbol of progress, rationality, the future, and it horrified him. Not because it was ugly, because it was perfect. Too perfect. A monument to the belief that humans could engineer paradise through reason and science. And Dostoevsky saw the lie. He saw that you can't engineer human happiness, because humans aren't rational. We're contradictory. We want things that hurt us. We reject things that help us. We're perverse. The underground man says it perfectly. Man likes to create and build roads. That is beyond dispute. But why does he also love destruction and chaos? Tell me that. Because we're not machines. We're not insects. We can't be perfected. We can't be optimized. Any system that tries will create underground men, people who withdraw, resist, sabotage, not because they're evil, because they're human. And here's where modern society still hasn't learned. We keep building crystal palaces, bigger ones, shinier ones. We call them social media, optimization culture, productivity systems, algorithmic feeds, perfectly engineered to maximize engagement, to shape behavior, to create the ideal user. And what's happening? More underground men, more women, more young people retreating into digital corners, scrolling alone, thinking too much, feeling too little, watching life through screens, safe from rejection, safe from failure, safe from humiliation, but not safe from consciousness, never safe from that. The underground man has a memory, a terrible memory. He crashes a party, uninvited. His former schoolmates are there. They barely acknowledge him. He follows them to a brothel, still trying to connect, still hoping for recognition. They ignore him, laugh at him, exclude him, and in that moment, he makes a choice. Not consciously, but definitively. He chooses spite over connection, isolation over humiliation, the underground over the world, because the world rejected him. Or maybe he rejected the world first. It doesn't matter. The result is the same. He goes home, alone, to his corner, where he's safe, where he's superior, where he can nurse his wound and call it wisdom. How many people do you know who've made that same choice? Not dramatically, gradually, one small retreat at a time, one canceled plan, one declined invitation, one night chosen alone over the risk of feeling inadequate, until the corner becomes comfortable, until isolation becomes identity, until the underground becomes home. Dostoevsky knew this pattern. He lived it. After his mock execution and years in Siberian prison, he understood suffering. He understood how consciousness can become a cage, and he warned us, through the underground man, through this strange, bitter, brilliant confession. But Dostoevsky doesn't offer solutions. That's what makes this work so disturbing. The underground man doesn't overcome his condition. He doesn't find redemption. He doesn't learn and grow. He just is. Stuck. aware of his stuckness, suffering from his awareness of suffering. There's no escape, only endless recursion. Consciousness observing consciousness, forever. And the final lines of Part 1 are devastating. He says, "I have only in my life carried to an extreme what you have not dared to carry halfway. And what's more, you have taken your cowardice for good sense, and have found comfort in deceiving yourselves." He's not just describing himself. He's describing all of us. We're all underground. We've all chosen safety over risk, consciousness over action, analysis over living. The only difference is he admits it. We pretend we're fine. Part 2 of the novel is even darker. It's a flashback. The underground man at 24. Still young, still capable of connection. And we watch him destroy every possibility. He meets Liza, a young prostitute. He talks to her, opens her eyes to her situation, offers her hope, a glimpse of something better. She comes to find him, vulnerable, trusting, reaching out. And what does he do? He humiliates her, crushes her, sends her away. Why? Because she saw him, really saw him, beyond his intellectual superiority, beyond his sophisticated spite. She saw his loneliness, his pain, his humanity, and he couldn't bear it. Because if she sees him, he has to see himself, and what he sees is unbearable. So he attacks, pushes her away, proves that he was right all along. Connection is impossible. People are terrible. Isolation is the only honest option. And then she leaves, and he's alone again, in his corner, where he's safe, where he's right, where he's dying, slowly, consciously, one thought at a time. Dostoevsky ends the novel with the underground man still talking, still explaining, still justifying, still stuck. And the final note from the author says, "The notes of this paradoxalist do not end here, however. He could not resist and continued them. But it also seems to us that we may stop here. Not that the story is over, but that we may stop listening. Because the underground man will never stop. He'll keep talking, keep thinking, keep analyzing. Forever. That's the horror. There's no resolution, no catharsis, no escape. Only the endless voice of consciousness, examining itself, finding itself wanting, continuing anyway. Because what else is there to do? Dostoevsky saw what we're becoming, a civilization of underground people, hyper-connected but utterly alone, infinitely informed but completely paralyzed, perfectly conscious of our own dysfunction, unable to change it, unwilling to accept it, trapped in the space between awareness and action, between knowing better and doing better, between understanding everything and being able to do nothing. And here's the question Dostoevsky doesn't answer, can't answer, won't answer. Is consciousness the problem? Or is it the solution we haven't fully embraced? Is the underground man sick because he's too conscious? Or because he's not conscious enough? Not conscious of what consciousness is for? Not aware that awareness without love becomes poison? Not understanding that intelligence without compassion becomes a weapon, turned inward, against itself? Maybe the real underground isn't a place, it's a choice. The choice to use your consciousness as a shield instead of a bridge. To use your intelligence to separate instead of connect. To use your awareness to justify isolation instead of deepen engagement. The underground man had a choice. When Liza came to him, when she offered connection, real, messy, imperfect connection, he could have chosen vulnerability over superiority, risk over safety, life over the underground. He chose wrong, and he knew it, even as he was doing it. That's the tragedy. Not that he didn't know better, but that knowing better wasn't enough, because knowing and doing are different things. Consciousness and action are different things. Understanding your prison and escaping it are different things. And modernity has convinced us that understanding is enough, that awareness is transformation, that if we just think about it enough, analyze it enough, process it enough, we'll be free. Dostoevsky is screaming at us across 160 years. No, you won't. Consciousness alone won't save you. It might destroy you, unless you use it differently, unless you stop using it to withdraw and start using it to engage, unless you stop hiding in your corner and start risking the world, unless you stop nursing your wounds and start building something. Anything, even if it's imperfect, even if it fails, even if people laugh, because the alternative is the underground, forever. And the underground is hell, not because it's painful, but because it's safe, safe from life, safe from love, safe from meaning, safe from everything that makes being human worthwhile. Look around. How many people do you know living underground? How many brilliant minds wasted in digital corners? How many potential connections destroyed by preemptive rejection? How many lives unlived because consciousness became a substitute for living? Dostoevsky saw this in 1864, before the internet, before social media, before the age of infinite information and zero wisdom. He saw what happens when intelligence outpaces courage, when awareness outpaces action, when consciousness becomes an end instead of a means. He saw the underground man, and he's multiplying. In every city, every screen, every isolated room where someone chooses thinking over being, safety over risk, the comfort of being right over the danger of being alive. So, what does this mean for you? It means Dostoevsky is asking you a question. The same question he asked 160 years ago. The same question the underground man couldn't answer. Are you living? Or are you just conscious? Are you engaged? Or are you just aware? Are you building something? Or are you just analyzing why building is futile? Because here's what Dostoevsky knew. Here's what the underground man proved. You can be completely right and completely dead. You can understand everything and experience nothing. You can see through all the illusions and miss the only thing that matters, the fact that you're alive, right now, in a body, in a world, with other people, for a limited time. And consciousness, for all its power, for all its insight, for all its sophistication, can't live for you. Only you can do that. And the clock is running. While you're thinking about it, while you're analyzing whether it's worth it, while you're safe in your underground corner, life is happening without you. The underground man died alone, in his corner, still talking, still thinking, still right about everything, still having lived nothing. Dostoevsky wrote him as a warning, not as a hero, not as a victim, as a mirror, showing us what we're becoming, what we might already be. The question is whether we'll recognize ourselves, and whether recognition will be enough, or whether we'll just add it to the pile. One more thing to be conscious of, one more thing to think about, one more reason to stay underground, where it's safe, where we're superior, where we're slowly, consciously, intelligently dying. Dostoevsky saw something most refuse to see, not because it's complicated, but because it implicates us. Because the underground man isn't a character from Russian literature. He's a diagnosis of modernity, of consciousness, of what happens when we choose safety over risk, thought over action, analysis over living. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. In yourself, in others, in the architecture of modern life that creates underground people by design. The question now is, are you ready for that recognition? Or will you retreat? Back to your corner, back to your thoughts, back to the safety of being right about how wrong everything is. Most people retreat, but you're still here. So maybe you're different. Maybe you're ready to climb out, into the light, where it's dangerous, where you might fail, where you might be rejected, but where you might also live, really live, before the underground becomes permanent, before consciousness becomes your coffin, before you become another voice, talking forever, to no one, about nothing, in the dark. If this revealed something you've been avoiding, if you recognize the underground in yourself, if you want to explore what the great minds saw that we're still refusing to see, subscribe to the Hidden Codex. Because we don't stop at the surface. We go where most people won't look, into the shadows of philosophy, into the warnings they buried, into the truths that change everything. Next time, we'll descend even deeper into Dostoevsky's vision, into the Grand Inquisitor, into the question that haunts all of modernity, the question of freedom and what it costs. You don't want to miss that. Until then, stay awake and climb out of your corner before it's too late.